everyone, welcome back to Page Pulse by Lee. Today's topic is something every Indian must know. In fact, that's why it's part of our class 5th social studies syllabus. Because this story is not just about history, it's about how India was tricked and slowly turned into rulers of our land. This is the story of the English East India Company. 400 years ago, on the last day of the year 1600, a group of English merchants received permission from Queen Elizabeth I to form a company called the English East India Company that would trade with the East. At first, their purpose was trading. They wanted spices, silk, cotton and indigo. But behind these innocent masks of trade, there was a bigger dream, a hidden ambition. The British never wanted to remain just merchants. They wanted to rule. In 1608, the first Englishman, Captain William Hawkins, arrived at the court of the Mughal Emperor Jahangir. The Mughals were powerful then, and the company had to seek their permission. In the 1615, another Englishman, Sir Thomas Roy, was successful in convincing the Mughal Emperor to allow the company to set up small trading centers called factories. These were not actual factories like we know today, but warehouses and offices where trade was carried out. Slowly, the company established bases in Surat, then Madras in 1639, Bombay in 1668, and Calcutta in 1690. At this stage, they were humble traders, dependent on the goodwill of Indian rulers. When they first arrived in India, the Portuguese, Dutch and French had already been trading here. The Portuguese had their strongholds on the western coast. The Dutch dominated the spice trade in Southeast Asia, and the French were building their presence in places like Pondicherry. Compared to them, the British came late, but they were clever. Instead of fighting every European rival at once, they slowly and carefully pushed each one aside. They defeated the Portuguese in naval power, outtraded the Dutch, and later fought and defeated the French in the Carnatic Wars. By the mid-18th century, the English East India Company stood as the strongest European power in India. The opportunity came because the Mughal Empire was collapsing after the death of Aurangzeb in 1707. India broke into smaller kingdoms, and the company played its cards shrewdly. They used diplomacy, bribes and betrayal to gain power. The decisive moment came in 1757 at the Battle of Plassey. The company led by Robert Clive fought against the Nawab of Bengal, Siraj-ud-Dawla. With betrayal from the Nawab's own commander, the company won the battle. This was not just another victory, it was the beginning of British rule in India. Bengal was the richest province, and now its immense wealth was in the hands of the company. The story continued in 1764 at the Battle of Buxar, where the company defeated the combined armies of the Mughal Emperor, the Nawab of Oudh, and the Nawab of Bengal. In 1765, the Mughal Emperor was forced to grant the company the Diwani rights, which meant they could now collect revenue in Bengal, Bihar and Orissa. For the first time, a trading company became a ruler with its own financial base. This money allowed them to build private armies, maintain administration and expand further. At the same time, something huge was happening back in England, the Industrial Revolution. Machines were now spinning thread and weaving cloth at a speed that human hands could never match. But these machines needed two things: raw materials like cotton and silk, and new markets to sell their finished products. Britain could not grow cotton, but India could. The company realized that if they controlled Indians' farmers and land, they could make India grow cotton for British mills and then force Indians to buy the very clothes those mills produced. It was a perfect circle of profit. Soon, they flooded the Indian market with cheap machine-made cloth. Indian hand-woven cloth, which was once famous around the world for its quality, lost its value. Villages that once thrived on the weaving and handcrafts collapsed under the weight of the machine imports. Farmers were forced to grow cotton and indigo instead of food crops. With less land for food, shortages began, and when famine struck, millions of ordinary people suffered. By the early 19th century, almost all of India was under their control, directly or indirectly. But their rule was not kind. Revenue systems like the permanent settlement in Bengal or the Raitwari in the south let farmers dry, forcing them to grow cash crops like indigo and cotton instead of food. Famines struck repeatedly. The British introduced railways, English education, and modern laws. But these were designed mainly to strengthen their hold and feed Britain's industries, not to help India. So my dear friends, today we learned how the East India Company entered as traders, removed their European rivals, and slowly turned into rulers of India. But remember, until this point, India was still under the control of the company, not the British Crown. In my next video, I'll tell you how, after the First War of Independence in 1857, India passed from the hands of the company into the direct control of the British Crown. Until then, stay curious, keep reading, and remember, history is not just the past, it is also a lesson for the future. Signing off, Page Pulse Bailey. See you next time.